These spectacular spires sometimes inspire us and astound us while we stare in awe skyward at their sheer size. Ever since Otis invented the elevator, the sky's the limit when it comes to erecting these iconic, towering structures. However, it wasn't always easy. Many lives have been lost and many lessons learned. As we build our modern-day towers of Babel higher and higher. Join me as we discover skyscrapers on this week's episode of FYI. Welcome to For Your Info.
En inglés.
You got it. Hello, and welcome to this another exciting episode of FYI. Hello, FYIers. I am proud to welcome you to another episode, and today, the sky's the limit. We're going to talk about skyscrapers. And before we even begin, let's pronounce it. It's not a skyscraper, it's skyscraper. Skyscraper. And don't say skycrapper, cagador de cielos, like my friend Damian says. It's skyscraper, coming from the verb to scrape, which is similar to scratch. So in essence, it's the same word, rascacielos, skyscraper. Good. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at today's intro, because it's chock full of vocabulary you need to know. I started out by saying these spectacular spires sometimes inspire us. Spire, inspire. Do you see what I did there? Well, a spire is a tall, pointed roof. In Spanish, I think you say chapitel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. They also astound us while we stare in awe, and to stare is to look without looking away. In Spanish, you say fijar la mirada. And we look in awe. In awe is when you say awesome. In Spanish, you say asombro. We were in awe because the episode was awesome. And we look skyward. Do you recognize that word from towards? That's a difficult one. We say towards or towards. I would naturally say towards, but it's that same suffix there. So skyward, hacia el cielo, at their sheer size. And the word sheer is mero. We've looked at this word a lot on the episodes. And I'm not talking about the fish mero. I mean mere. Hey, there's a synonym for sheer, and it rhymes. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. Then I said, ever since Otis invented the elevator, and I know all of you know about Otis. Every elevator I've ever been on bears his name, the inventor of the elevator. And this was one of the many breakthroughs that needed to happen in order for the skyscrapers to continue to grow skyward. Without innovations such as the elevator, steel and iron and certain processes used with them, we couldn't go any higher. Well, do you feel like walking up 100 flights of steps? I didn't think so. And a flight of steps is one level. You'll hear me say floors or stories. They both mean plantas. So you'll hear that word a few times throughout today's episode. I already gave you the idiomatic expression, the sky's the limit, when it comes to erecting these iconic, towering structures. However, it wasn't always easy. Many lives have been lost. Even to this day, there are more deaths than there should be, especially in certain countries that don't protect the workers. So we hope no more lives are lost, and we hope that many lessons will continue to be learned as we build our modern-day towers of Babel, and we build them higher and higher. And I think this is a fascination we've had forever, reaching the heavens. But also, if you remember how the ending of the story of the Tower of Babel goes, it doesn't go too well. But I don't want to babble on about that. To babble on is to keep on talking. Just be careful. It's not Babel, we say Babel. But it's true, we've always wanted to build higher and higher. I see it with my daughter. We use building blocks and we build towers. And the idea is to get higher and higher. And it's something that's almost innate. In fact, it makes me think of the word, the building blocks. The building blocks are the basic elements of anything. And we'll take a look at a lot of idiomatic expressions in the bonus part. We'll also take a look at the world's tallest towers and some of the ones that are in development as we speak. We'll look at some of the ugliest in Billionaires Row in New York City. Some people call these eyesores. I'll give you the facts, you be the judge. And an eyesore is something that's not fun to look at, something that's ugly. And let's be honest, some of these skyscrapers you see nowadays are downright ugly. So we'll take a look at some of those. We'll also take a look at some fun facts. We'll take a look at some disasters where engineering went wrong. We'll take a look at it in pop culture, music, and movies. And as always, some idioms that have to do with the topic as well. All that and much more in the bonus episode of today's FYI. If you want to get a bonus episode every week, plus get PDF documents with all the vocabulary, you can join my community for as little as €3 a month. In fact, you can join for free now. You just don't get access to all the posts. But depending on what level you're on, you can get even private classes with me once a month, as well as weekly group classes with me. And if you want to find out more, go to patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. You'll see it's organized into 4 levels. Take a look around. Let me know if you have any questions. The good news is the community is growing every single day. And more importantly, you guys are improving your English. You're gaining the confidence you need, all while making friends with people who have similar interests as you. If you want to join our curious community, go over to patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. There are almost 200 of us now, and I want to send a shout out to each and every one of you, especially my super duper students, Luis, Marta, Javier, Paco, Roberto. And don't forget about my interstellar students, the ones who get a private class with me, Carmen, Lina, Isa, Paco, David, Jose Maria, Patricio, and Edgar. Keep it up. If you guys want to join my curious community, go to patreon.com/Alberto Alonso. And also, if you have ideas for upcoming episodes, just let me know. As always, we'll start by defining the topic. What is a skyscraper? According to Wikipedia, and you've got to trust Wikipedia, in fact, you've got to trust everything you read online. Not. A skyscraper is a tall, continuously habitable building having multiple floors. Modern sources define skyscrapers as being at least 100 meters. For our friends in the United States, 330 feet. But some definitions say it's 150 meters, so 50 meters taller. So what does that mean? There is no universally accepted definition. Historically, the term referred to buildings with 10 and 20 stories. This was in the 1880s. That's as high as skyscrapers would go. Obviously, nobody wants to walk more than 10 floors. Even 5 is a lot. But you'll be in great shape, I'll tell you that. But it's just not practical, all joking aside. As we know, skyscrapers can have offices, hotels, residential spaces like condos, and retail spaces, as well as parking garages underground. One common feature of skyscrapers is that they have a steel frame, and that steel frame supports curtain walls. This was an idea that was invented by Viollet-le-Duc in his discourses on architecture. And these curtain walls, they don't bear the load. They are either below or suspended from the framework. So there are pillars or beams in the middle that carry all the load. The outside part is just a facade, because before that, you would use concrete and it was just heavy. You couldn't go up too high, and all the walls had to be load-bearing walls. But in modern skyscrapers, the walls, the exterior walls I'm referring to, are usually not load-bearing. And the word load is carga if you haven't figured it out. Most skyscrapers are characterized by large surface areas of windows, again made possible by these steel frames and curtain walls. So the frame is like the skeleton, and as long as that's steel and that's strong, well, the exoskeleton, if you will, can be designed any way you want, thinking about form, thinking about function, or preferably both. Modern skyscrapers often have a tubular structure as well. They're designed to act like a hollow cylinder. The word hollow is hueco. And this way they can resist wind, seismic activity, and other lateral loads. Some statistics for you. As of September 2023, 14 cities in the world have more than 100 skyscrapers that are 150 meters or taller. That's 492 feet. Which city in the world do you think has the most skyscrapers over 150 meters tall? Did you say Hong Kong? Nice job. Hong Kong has an astounding 552 skyscrapers over 150 meters tall. The second place one doesn't even come close. Shenzhen, China, has an astounding 373, but if you compare it to Hong Kong, it's almost double. And in third place, we've got, you guessed it, start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. New York City, New York, with 314 skyscrapers over 150 meters. Then you've got Dubai, which we'll talk about later on, with 252, Guangzhou, China, with 188, Shanghai with 183, Tokyo with 168, Kuala Lumpur, Wuhan, Chicago's on the list with 137, Bangkok is also on the list with 111. So as we can see, a lot of these cities are in the east, where the population is astronomical, and they have to be able to support all that growth. So they build upwards. I mean, that's the whole idea behind a city. Now, many cities are sprawling, and they're built horizontally, like Los Angeles. But even in Los Angeles, if you go downtown, there's always an area that's built vertically. The downtown area. The business district where the big banks are. Also think about it. That's the best sign. Yeah, you can put a little billboard next to the road, or you can be the tallest building in a city and your logo is right over the city. And we'll talk about that. A lot of these buildings are named after the business or the man's name who built them, such as the Sears Tower, which was at one point the tallest one in the United States. It's located in Chicago. It's called the Willis Tower now, but it was called the Sears Tower. And Sears was like a Corte Inglés type thing. So they've made brand names icons. The Chrysler Building, for the love of God. Chrysler might not be the most popular car brand, but that is one of the most popular buildings in the United States. So the word Chrysler is uttered by people all over the world. So is there better advertising? No. And that's why these banks and insurance companies know that. Look at Madrid, KPMG, these big auditing companies. financial industry, consulting. These businesses I know very little about, but I know anywhere you go, they're the ones that are in the skyscrapers. Let's take a look at a little history of skyscrapers. Again, the definition is disputed, but according to many, the first steel frame skyscraper was the Home Insurance Building. In what city? Did you say Chicago? Nice. That's right, in 1885. It reached a height of 42 meters. That's 138 feet. Translation, 10 stories. Whoa! Remember, folks, we're talking about 1885 over here. 2 years before Elisha Otis introduced the safety elevator, because the Home Insurance Building is disputed. Some people point to a building in Philadelphia called the Jane Building, which was built from 1849 to 1850. And that was also 10 stories as well. And some say it was the 7-floor Equitable Life Building in New York City, built in 1870. But there's one thing that is not disputed. The E.V. Howout Building in Manhattan was the first building to successfully install a passenger elevator, and this was in March of 1857. So they all had their contribution, but it was that steel skeleton in the Home Insurance Building that has allowed for today's super tall skyscrapers. The ones that you're seeing popping up all over New York City these days on what we call Billionaires Row. But more about that in the bonus. Now, if you were paying attention before, I said the first building that had an elevator was the E.V. Howout Building. And that was in 1857. It's when Otis introduced the safety elevator. But this was just the precursor. It wasn't until 1870, in the aforementioned Equitable Life Building, that we saw the first commercial passenger elevators. Again, that was in 1870, and that's why by many historians it's considered the first skyscraper. Another crucial element that made the Equitable Life Building such a milestone, such a breakthrough, was the use of the steel frame. Before that, they were using stone or brick, and obviously that was not practical as you got higher and higher. Another thing that let us go higher and higher was sprinklers. Sure, what if you have a fire and you're in the penthouse? You're not going to want to buy a condo without sprinklers, because the first thing that's disabled when there's a fire is the elevators. So all of these things not only added to the safety, but it let us build higher and higher. And as we said before, that's the goal. Even today, the goal is not to build beautiful buildings anymore. It seems like taller is better. I'm not saying I agree with that statement. I'm just saying the way it is. And from the Tower of Babel to the tallest structure in ancient times, the Great Pyramid of Giza, which was 146 meters. Well, I should say. That was the 26th century BC. And it was not surpassed in height for thousands of years. By the way, speaking of the pyramids, if you haven't listened to the episode on the 7 Wonders, give it a listen. It's wonderful. Another early title holder was the Lincoln Cathedral. This was 160 meters, but that was thousands of years later and only 20-something meters taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. And now it seems like the tallest building in the world title lasts for a year. And then somebody comes and makes a taller building into the stratosphere and boom, they take the title. An interesting thing about the Lincoln Cathedral is the spire collapsed. Well, the Lincoln Cathedral was not surpassed until the 169-meter Washington Monument in 1884. But again, these are uninhabited. The definition of a skyscraper is they have to be habited. So none of these comply with the modern definition of a skyscraper. But they were all predecessors. The idea was the same. Bigger, bolder, and pushing higher into the heavens. Some other notable ones, the Singer Building. It was the world's tallest building when it was completed in 1908, and it was located in, you guessed it, New York City. Then you've got the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company Tower. This is right across from the iconic Flatiron Building. Well, this took the title when it was completed in 1909. So the poor Singer Building didn't have the title for more than a year. Then came the Woolworth Building, which you can still see because it's still standing taller than it's ever been, looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. And we'll talk about that in the bonus part too. We'll talk about the average life of these mega skyscrapers, and you'll be surprised. It's quite short. But the Woolworth Building is absolutely beautiful. It is a neo-Gothic cathedral of commerce, and it's in downtown Manhattan. It's 241 meters tall, and when it was completed in 1913, it became the world's tallest building. And it held that title until 1930. So a lot longer than the Singer Building. The next one is still an iconic building. So many years later, we mentioned it before, the Chrysler Building. In 1930, it took the lead as the tallest building in the world, reaching 319 meters tall. As many of you know, it's got an Art Deco style, and there are even gargoyles on the top, near the spire. And it continues to be a favorite to this day. That was eventually beaten by the Empire State Building, another one that continues to be a favorite, just 9 streets south. And this one is 381 meters tall, 102 stories. That was in 1931, and the Empire State Building was the first building to have more than 100 floors. Eventually, it was surpassed by the World Trade Center. This was in 1970. Well, actually, it was completed in 1973. And for a short time, the World Trade Center's North Tower, which was completed in 1972, was the tallest building in the world. But the following year, the Sears Tower in Chicago took the title. Now it's called the Willis Tower. And if you guys are on Patreon, you'll see I shared some photos with my wife and I at the top. It's awesome. There's a glass skywalk, and if you're afraid of heights, I wouldn't go up there. My knees were shaking. And it's funny because people still call it the Sears Tower. Even though they call it the Willis Tower, the name just stuck. And that was completed in 1974. Again, thankfully, that one, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, the Woolworth Building, you can still visit those today. But do it before it's too late, because the same way they're building up these towers, they're knocking them down too. We talked about that a lot in our Las Vegas episode. After the Sears Tower, the title was finally taken from the United States. The Petronas Towers in 1998. They took the title from the United States. Before that, the battle was between New York and sometimes Chicago. There's still a battle of the skyscrapers. You know what I say? Both cities have the most amazing skyscrapers I've ever seen in my life. It's worth going to both cities. And when we were in Chicago, we did an architecture tour. It was fascinating. I'll give you more fun facts in the bonus part. Here's a little trivia for you. At the time of this recording, 2024, what's the tallest building in the world? It's the Burj Khalifa. It's located in Dubai. It's been featured in movies. Tom Cruise climbed it on a stunt, and it's become an icon. But it won't be the tallest for long, because some people are already planning to take the title. So whether you like skyscrapers or not, it's interesting to see the battle to be the biggest. And that battle continues from the Tower of Babel to today. And I'm not the only one who's fascinated by this topic, because every September 3rd is Global Skyscraper Day. I hope you found this fascinating, and I hope you'll join us in the bonus episode of this week's FYI. FYI.